It's West Tigers Podcast, episode number 324. Unfortunately, not a post-victory edition of the West Tigers Podcast. 5 in a row now, unfortunately. The Bulldogs, as we all know, the latest team to get over the Tigers, 22 points to 14 yesterday. We will start with some one-word submissions that have come in both via Facebook and also via the West Tigers Podcast Forum. Thank you to everybody that submitted one word. On Facebook, Grant said despondence, which is an interesting word. I don't think that's ever come up as a one-word submission before. Well done, Grant. Rachel said leadership, i.e. the lack of on-field leadership yesterday. Kane, his one word was typical. On the West Tigers Podcast Forum, the last Ronan said energy. In the first half we had some, in the second half we had none. Tiger 5150 line speed was the word. Dirty Reds half, i.e. we played half a game. Easty Magpie half-hearted. Tiger Tons one word for the game against the Bulldogs was discipline. Canberra Tiger frustration. Peter A fortitude, i.e. a lack of mental strength. Nath Tiger, welcome Nath Tiger, good to have your submissions. 3-peat, unfortunately Nath saying or believing that we're heading for another spoon. Mike's one word, consistency. He said we need to be more consistent. And Logan R21, 80 minutes was the submission there. Steve Stretton, good evening to you. Your one word submission, please.
Hey, Joel. Hi, everyone. Yeah, my one word is fundamentals. It is just so frustrating. You know, we start the season off, we play a great game against the Sharks, against the Eels, and then we slip back into 5 poor performances where we just beat ourselves, and we beat ourselves by not doing the fundamentals. You know, and that second half was the classic example of one team doing the basics really well, line speed, kick chase, kicking, putting us in the corner, keeping us in our half, and the other team not doing the fundamentals well in any respect in the game, and it's just frustrating. We've been doing it for so long.
A couple of one words there. Frustrating too comes through as another one. Declan,
fair enough.
One word for you aside from fundamentals and frustration. I've got a few. I'll be giving you mine in a second. What have you got for us?
Well, I actually was going to go with frustrating as well, and I think it's too late to change it on the fly, so I'm just going to stick with that. Frustrating on a number of levels. I think frustrating, obviously, the officiating is something that I think we can all agree was very frustrating. But then just like in the second half, we were just pinned in our own half the entire time. But then that break from Galvin to Bula, and that we managed to break them open. And if we just managed to score then and like take advantage of that field position, then it's only 2 points in it, and then it's anyone's game. But we just can't really seem to ice those moments we're getting to like draw level or like make it a competitive game, and that's just so frustrating at the moment because it's happened a few times these few rounds.
Yeah, very true. And Eddie, hello to you. One word, please.
I just went with Badger, Joel, because I thought that was the most inept, incompetent, laughable refereeing display I've ever seen. And I actually thought we played pretty well yesterday. I thought we were really up for the game. Obviously, there were elements that were disappointing in that second half, but I thought the referee played a very large role in our demise yesterday. And I was surprised Benji didn't go after it in the press conference.
Mm. Yeah, it was a very interesting refereeing performance. I'm taking some liberties as I do. Not only do I have a few one-word submissions, I've also got an acronym, and we'll play a little guessing game as to what my acronym means. I've got physicality, which is just a standard. It gets written on the notepad every week because it's the ongoing issue. Leg speed / offensive speed. Monstered in that second half. I've got snails because we seem to do a lot of stuff at a snail's pace. Reality. And one that's really a hard one to sort of say is joyless, and that's just that realisation of how joyless it is to be a West Tigers fan in the last few years. It's been and continues to be really disappointing. But my acronym is TIAD, T-I-A-D, and I'm sure that none of you are going to be able to guess what that means, but it is talent, identification and development. And I think what we're seeing in our roster and in our performance is some real lack of quality talent identification and development over the last 5 or so years that's really coming home to roost. So there you go. It did definitely take a little bit of creative license with all of that. On a not unrelated topic, some news that is just coming to hand, and it's, again, disappointing news, but maybe not overly unexpected. Lee Hadjipentelis has penned a letter saying that Bryden's will definitely not be continuing on as the major sponsor of the West Tigers, and he has, the former chairman, thrown the toys out with the cod in what I think is quite an unprofessional effort and attempt. He's called the review, which we all know the West Tigers podcast had a lot to do with last year. He's called that review a sham. And he's called the West Tigers upper management, so I guess we're referring to the Holman Barnes group there, most likely, as being cowards. So very interesting language. Steve, you and I have spoken a lot about standards and professionalism and the way the club has been run in the last decade. I don't know about you, but I'm embarrassed for Lee in all this. I think it's just grossly unprofessional from someone in his position.
I think for every word he utters, every word that he writes down, every person he contacts and has an opinion published, he just makes himself look more and more immature. It's childish. It's petulant. He's like a spoilt brat that hasn't got his own way, and he's just making himself out to look like an absolute fool. What he needs to do, in my personal opinion, is go out and buy a mirror and have a good hard look at himself. Because he was the leader of this organisation and led us through what was a corporate disaster. And it was splashed across the papers mainly because he couldn't keep himself out of the media. His tenure as the corporate leader of this organisation was an unmitigated disaster. And it's about time he has a good hard look at himself and realises that a lot of the blame needs to be laid firmly at his shoes. So he should shut up, get on with running Bryden's and leave the Tigers alone because he's done enough damage.
It's definitely a little bit bizarre, Eddie, because, you know, we've won the last 2 wooden spoons. The action that was taken at the end of last year was taken because the club was going backwards. I mean, I don't think anybody just woke up one day and said, let's go on a vendetta and clean out the management of the West Tigers. Like, it was years of frustration, disappointment, and poor results. I feel really vindicated, and I feel really justified in the actions that we took to try and get this change happening. So they're bizarre comments as far as I'm concerned.
No, I can't say it any better than Steve did. I thought that was excellent there. A self-reflection, not one of Lee's strong points. And he mentioned the review was a sham, but more of a sham was his tenure in charge of the West Tigers, fudging memberships, exaggerating financial results, all the leaks to the media, back-to-back wooden spoons, setting the club back probably 10 years and still evidence on the field today. So good riddance, Lee.
Yeah, I think we'll probably leave it there. I think the story says enough in itself. So there you go. And Shane Richardson has responded. It's all on the socials. It's on the West Tigers podcast forum, so feel free to read the full article and read Shane Richardson's response there. We'll move on from that, I think. Declan, a tale of 2 halves this game against the Bulldogs. I don't really want to talk about the second half right at the moment. The first half, the Bulldogs obviously weren't at their best because we could contrast that with what we saw in the second half. But I thought in that first half I was feeling all right. There were some pretty good glimpses there.
Yeah, I mean, if you look at the first try we scored, that was a beautiful shift from our own 20 as well. So you don't really often score those long-range tries, but we finally set up Charlie Staines with some pace, and then, he just managed to execute with Brent Naden and scored a really nice try. And then, Bole went right through the middle of the field as well. So we were just all over the top of them. And I was feeling really positive. I know that, we were kind of up against it from the referee's perspective. And the Bulldogs, you always knew that they had, strike power in their back line. But I always thought that I was feeling pretty good going into the first half because we were physical, we were dominant. Yeah, and it just looked like we looked like when we were playing the Parramatta Eels and the Sharks. We just were really disciplined, suggesting really well. Whenever they spread the ball, we looked to have them covered. But then, as you said, it was just completely the opposite in the second half.
That first try was awesome to watch. Because we ran multiple decoys. We ran numbers at the defensive line, and it was the running of numbers that led to their defensive structure breaking down and going to the wrong player, which allowed for the gap to put Staines away. And that was beautiful to watch. It was great shape, and it was just perfectly executed. And it just shows the potential that is actually there in this team. We just don't see it enough.
I've got in my notes here in the first half, if we talk about, because I know on the midweek pod, Eddie, you guys were talking about the threats on the Bulldogs' left side, our right side, but I thought Naden and Staines did a really good job on Kikau and Josh Adokar in that first half. I was feeling really proud of their efforts in that. But aside from that, the loss of Appy, losing Appy, who so much of our offense is around, it certainly had me worried when I learned that he wasn't playing. I had a feeling he wasn't going to play, just a gut instinct that he wasn't going to play. But the way that we responded was really heartening in that first half, because I felt like we did a pretty good job in our offense.
No, we did, and we, there was a lot of pressure that first 15 minutes. Bulldogs had all the ball, 5 or 6 penalties in that first 10 minutes, could easily cracked, and then go up the other end and score a couple of tries. I think Naden and Staines are building a nice little partnership there over the last couple of weeks, just quietly. And you mentioned a good point on the defensively. I thought we did as good a job as been done on Kikau in the last 6 weeks from Caesar and those guys on the right-hand side with Kikau, Cherry and Adokar. They were kept fairly quiet all afternoon. So plenty of positive aspects, especially in that first 40. A couple of maybe little chances. There was that Bula knock-on right on half-time where we could have maybe gone in at 20-6 where we had all the momentum, but after half time it was just, I was dreading it the first 2 minutes of the second half, just like a completely different game.
Well, I think the Naden in that right side, I think he's just completely changed just how dangerous we look, because we just, before he came on with Patafi was there, that just looked set upside, wasn't it, where we'd get tackled there and then make the big shift to the left side with Olam. But now that he's there, we just look like we've actually got genuine threat. And then Brent Naden and Charlie Staines, they were the centre winger combination on the right side for the Penrith Panthers, I think, in 2021. So it's good to see, because they do have history, and you can tell because they do combine pretty well. I think that try that Charlie Staines scored, I could easily have seen us muck that up, because although it was a simple drawing pass, it's difficult to nail sometimes. And I think that Blake Taft did a good job of just being awkward enough just to maybe put Brent Naden off a little bit, but to his credit, he did a really good job to find Staines. So, yeah, it was good to see.
I thought... Go, Steve.
Oh, sorry, Joel. It's just the way we've been officiated this year. It's a wonder it didn't go to the bunker for a forward pass, and I know the bunker's not allowed to rule on forward passes, but I'm still surprised it didn't go there.
Yeah, and that, just to Eddie's point about the refereeing, aside from all the focus has been on those 4 challenges, but how that referee and the lines person missed that forward pass from the Bulldogs that rolled about 4 metres forward, and it wasn't seen. That should be enough to sort of have you scratching your head as to whether the officiating was up to NRL standard. We've had a bit of a shot last week at Jareen Bula, disappointed in his game. Eddie, I thought he stepped it up. He did make that mistake, obviously he did, but in terms of his intensity, I thought it was a lot better than it's been the last couple of weeks. He looked more of a threat.
For the large part, I liked his game. I've got 2 incidents I really didn't like, I was confused by, but you're right, he was as good as I've seen with the ball all year. His kick returns were better. I wouldn't say they're exceptional, but I think he made 60 or 70 kick return metres. He busted 10 tackles yesterday, and he busted about 20 all year, so... his intent when he had the ball yesterday was much better, and he set up his outside men a couple of times. There was one that went down the right-hand side as well, which could have ended in a try. I think we fluffed that a little bit. But there were aspects of his attack. But, 2 aspects defensively I hated. Right on half-time, the Bulldogs kicked, and if it wasn't for Justin Olam running from the other side of the field, you watch Jareen Bula there, he's jogging for whatever reason. He kicks on with 20 seconds to go. And then the first try in the second half, where I think it's Hutchinson rolls the ball into the in goal, you watch him come across the field. I don't care if he's thinking someone else is going to get it. He is jogging for 15 or 20 metres, and then he puts his foot in, at the last second to make a fake effort at the ball. So I thought that could have cost us 2 tries. It cost us 1, and that's just surprising because that was the strongest element of his game last year. So that was disappointing, but like you said, with the ball in hand, that was probably his best game of the year, I thought.
Yeah, I think this is just speculation, and it's not an excuse, obviously, because when you go onto the field, I think he is carrying a leg injury, because if you look at the Charlie Staines try, when he releases the ball, he doesn't follow the play like he normally would. He seems to be kind of limping behind it a little bit if you just watch him as the ball goes past him, and I think usually he'd be in support, but he just seemed to struggle a little bit, and I think that every time he kind of carried the ball, he didn't look 100% comfortable. Now, obviously, when you take the field, injury isn't an excuse, but I just think that was something that I noticed. I think a few people online are kind of speculating that it looks like he's kind of carrying a lower leg injury at the moment, and that might be a reason why he didn't manage to get to the Bulldogs props try.
Curran, was it? Was that the Curran try?
Yeah. Josh Curran, yeah.
Yeah, no, good points, guys. Look, going over old territory, and I know this always opens up a fair degree of debate, but the bench and the impact off the bench, Pole, excluding Pole, who I thought was very good again, but the 2 Alexes, in previous years, we've had a Tarmo go off and another starting prop, and you haven't noticed too much of a difference. But now we get to that 20-minute point, and it feels like you can feel us sort of reduce our impact and reduce our effectiveness. That impact off the bench, Steve, for me, that stands out. Whereas if you watch a lot of the better teams, they don't tend to lose that momentum when they go to the bench. In fact, sometimes they actually gain it, but we just seem to go down a couple of gears.
So Seyfarth played 15 minutes, ran for 10 metres in 15 minutes. That was his run metres. Twal almost played a half a game, ran for 60 odd metres. We've said before, Seyfarth and Twal coming off the bench together is just ineffectual for us, and that's proving to be true. But I think it goes a little deeper than that as well, Joel. Stefano and Clemmer both only ran for 80 metres in their stints, 51 and 40 minutes. That's barely passable. Papali'i, apart from letting in 2 tries, in his 60 minutes on the field, ran for a total of 26 metres. Right, and so when you've got your forward pack, which includes your bench rotation, to your point, pumping out meters like that, we've got no chance. We're not starting our sets well. Like our back 3 can't get us started on the sets, and then when our big bobbers get the ball, second, third, fourth tackle, they're ineffectual as well. They're not making any post contact moves. We were kicking the ball, sometimes between our 30 and our 40, at the end of our sets, and you just can't win football games, especially when Canterbury came to that game with such an attitude of line speed in defence, and they just crushed us. They just crushed us as far as positional play on the football field. So yeah, I agree, mate. I agree 100% in what you're saying about our bench rotation. But I think it's deeper than that because our starting guys aren't doing it as well. And Papali'i, my goodness, as a leader in our pack, I don't know what's going on there.
Yeah, well, I've got Papali'i on my list to talk about. So let's go there straight away. I will say that in that second half, Serraldo just at half time, he just pulled out the 3 easy tips for how to beat the West Tigers. Up the line speed, just go up a gear and you'll be okay. And unfortunately they did. But Isaiah Papali'i, Eddie, poor old Adam Blair, he's copped it over the years, and quite rightly so. But have you ever seen a guy, we have because we had Adam Blair, but a guy that comes with raps that hasn't been able to do the job here for some reason? And we spoke a little bit last week about, not being put into holes, but his all-round game is just really, really poor, and he's best we've barely seen. We've seen glimpses, but for now a season and a half, it's been just thoroughly disappointing for Isaiah.
is running out of excuses, Joel. Like you said, just the eye test. Like, even if I don't look at the stats, if you ask me at the end of each game, did Isaiah Papali'i impact the game? My answer would be no. You know, at least John Bateman. I know John Bateman does some silly things out there, but he's impacting the game in some way. You know, like he's still some sort of threat. He does some good runs, but Papali'i, he's just I don't know what it is. He's just totally ineffectual. Some of those runs, those 4 runs yesterday, and then we know laterally, defensively, he's not great. Obviously got exposed a couple of times there, so it's a problem because, like Steve said, it's the bench. It's not like the bench is demanding to start games, and it's not like there's anyone in reserve grade who's they're running dead last and getting flogged most weeks. So I just think his time as a back rower is over at our club anyway. I think we've got to try and move him to the middle, whether that's at lock or on the bench, because we're just getting nothing out of him.
Well, that's what I was about to say. If you look at what Wayne Bennett did with Adam Blair after when he went to the Broncos, he just moved him to the middle as a prop and just said, all right, you just tackle everything, just be that kind of involved guy. And he was never really that dominant Hayne Haas type prop, but he was just so good defensively, it warranted his positional play there. So I agree with Eddie. I think it's time to move Papali'i to the middle of the field because he is a good player. Like, you know, it's not like he's someone who shouldn't be in first grade. Like, he's a New Zealand international, and your talent just doesn't go away. And he's still a really young guy. But yeah, I think we just need to simplify his role, put him in the middle, maybe even put him off the bench so that, you know, move John Bateman back to an edge, have Samuel Afanu there, and then have either, you know, Papali'i like 13, bench, prop, I don't know, something like that, just to, you know, simplify it for him, just get him back to running the ball, something like that. Because, yeah, I think something needs to change because, like, for a season and a half now, it just hasn't really looked like it's clicked for him at the club, has it?
Yeah, so just to both your points there, guys, I agree with what you're saying, but I'm not going to let him off that easily, right? Like if you remember earlier in the year, I was actually backing him and saying his effort plays were just outstanding, and they were, right? And I'm not saying he's not having a go, but if you look at his efforts in defence on Saturday, the first try they scored, he ran into the ruck where there was no need. It was a very poor defensive decision. It was not like he got beaten laterally. He actually made a poor defensive decision to go left into the ruck, which left an overlap. So Caesar had to rush out of the line, creating a huge gap, and they scored a try. Then the second time, yeah, he did get beaten laterally when Burton went through the hole, but there was no game awareness because I watched it. Right, he was not trailing across field as the ball was going across field. He was not coming across with it. He'd slowed down to almost a walk and then got beaten. It wasn't as if he was putting in the effort in case he had to cover the inside. So I'm not letting him off that easy, right? Yes, he's a great player, but his head's not in the game, and we've got a really young squad, and these senior blokes have got to take some responsibility. And Bateman, like his game, like he played a good game, Bateman, but his stupidity killed us, and Papali'i the same. These guys have got to lead responsibly. They're not.
Yeah, well, Bateman's a whole other issue because he was the captain, and when you've got a guy, because if I asked you guys 2 weeks ago who's the current West Tigers player who's got the shortest fuse, and you probably would have said Bateman. So I don't know if you really want Bateman to be your captain. Seyfarth is up there as well. But as we get into that, and let's have a look at, I just want to make the point firstly that we had 27% possession in that 20 minutes after half time. Like, we were completely starved, had no momentum whatsoever. I'm not making excuses. We conceded 16 points in that period of time. But we had nothing left in the tank. We had nothing in our arsenal to be able to step it up. We're just getting monstered and manhandled. But talking about the discipline in that last bit, it looks like Clemmer and Seyfarth aren't going to be missing any time. We need to talk about Caesar. But the decision to put Bateman as captain, Eddie, knowing that Bateman can be the guy that gives up the penalties and can be the hothead. And I know that maybe there wasn't a whole lot of other potential choices there, but so is that a misfire by Benji, do you think, to have given him the responsibility? Because I think it did contribute to, when your captain's losing it, then the other people in the team tend to suffer the ill effects of that?
I sort of wrestle with this one, Joel, because, like you said, there's not a whole lot of candidates, and Benji obviously wants to get the most of, a highly paid international in John Bateman. And, as you know, I was losing it during the game yesterday. I can't imagine what it was like on the field. Like, seriously. Like, I know you're saying, like, Canterbury monstered and manhandled us and got the line speed, but I wasn't at the game. But how far back were they in the second half? Were they 5 metres back the whole time? I reckon Ronaldo just played on the fact that referee had no control and didn't have the gumption to penalise them. And I thought it was excellent tactics by Canterbury. Full credit to them. But, I mean, to be fair, Bateman has lost it at times this year when he shouldn't have in the past. So maybe that's a trend that, you're right, Benji has to look at. We need better from our senior players in that situation. But I thought yesterday was I was feeling for some of those guys on the field, because that was a shambolically umpired game.
Yeah, I think that I've seen a little bit of criticism of Bateman online about like how he talked to the referee, and I think that's a little bit unwarranted, because he's the captain on the field. Like, if you look at Cameron Smith, like the greatest player of all time, like, he was at the referees like every single decision. Like, he was talking to them all the time. And that's Bateman's job. Like, he's supposed to be going at the ref. Like, as long as he's not like swearing or like going at him, like using offensive language or anything like that, that's fine. It's like the game within the game. Like, I don't see like why Bateman should be doing that. And I remember being critical of like Tigers captains in the past, because they haven't been getting at the refs and they haven't been putting that thought in their head, because you just know that the big clubs, like if James Tedesco is like talking to you, that's going to have an impact on the ref for the next play, and that's why it's the game within the game. So like Bateman, that's what he's supposed to be doing. Like, I just don't get it.
Declan took the words out of my mouth then. I mean, some people didn't like Robbie Farah as Tigers captains, but as a referee, he knew he was out there. He stood up for us. Like, that's one frustration I had with Moses Mbai and Tamau and all these nice guys out there. We're getting flogged every week in the penalties, and they're just being, whatever. Whereas Bateman's in the referee's face. Aspects of his game, like the one that really killed us was he gave another fourth tackle penalty away, where he's just lying in the play of the ball and gets baited by the person playing the ball. And that's just unacceptable. That's nothing to do with talking to the referees or captaincy. That's just personal ill discipline. So he's got to stamp that out.
That's my issue, guys, with him. It's like he, as I said earlier, he actually played his guts out yesterday, and he actually played a captain's game, as a player. But it's his ill discipline with silly penalties, crazy passes sometimes, like throwing balls out the back that just aren't on, that just lets the whole team down and puts us under pressure, And as a captain, right, and I agree with you, Eddie, like that was a diabolical display of refereeing. It was the worst I've ever seen ever. But it was the same for both teams, even though we're looking at it through our our tinted eyes, right? And they handled that pressure better than we did. At the end of the game, we were an absolute rabble, right? And that's Bateman's job as captain, to keep the other guys under control, no matter what's going on out there, right? And he wasn't able to do that because he was going off his nut as well. Now, they've got good reason to, right? It was just ridiculous. But you can't. No matter what, you can't. It's professional sport. You've got to be better than that. And Bulldogs were better than us in that aspect.
Well, yeah, I've just, in my time playing footy, there's just been like a few like instances where, you're having a running argument with the referee because for whatever reason you're not getting the calls. But it's just impossible to win a game when you're like playing the other team, but then you're also playing against the ref at the same time. And I felt like that's what happened to us against the Bulldogs. Like, we were playing the Bulldogs, but then we're also playing against Casey Badger in some respects, because we're just like arguing with her the entire time. And that's only ever going to end up in one outcome, isn't it? Like, the refs, they're going to, they have the whistle at the end of the day. There's not really much you can do about that. And that's just, you just have to do your best just to like play with the cards you're dealt and like try and keep the argument to a minimum, which is really hard to do on the field, but it just doesn't gain results when you're, going back and forth with the referee the entire time.
Yeah, good points, guys. So true. And on paper, Bateman looks to be the guy that you would hand the captaincy to. But yeah, I just don't know if he's got the temperament to be able to do that job. Something that did make me a little bit happy in that first half was the combination between Galvin and Samuela Fainu on our left side. I thought that looked good at times. Galvin, I thought he had a reasonably good game. A few times he can be guilty of going sideways a little bit, where I'd just like him to straighten it up a little bit more. Declan?
Yeah, I think that right now he's probably, I think he's got the IQ of a first grade footy player, but I'm not sure his, physical development is there at the moment, because he took a few hit-ups as well, and it's credit to him because he wants to get involved in the game to get his hands on the ball, but he's just not at the stage where he can kind of physically dominate with his running game yet. Hopefully in an off-season or two that's going to help, and he'll be able to do that. But yeah, I think when he gets caught off the ball, sometimes he can be dragged back a little bit, and that kind of hurts us. But I think the good thing to see with him is that the effort is there, and the willingness to get your hands dirty is there as well.
Can I throw one more stat up? Yachty would be proud of me. I've done my research here. I've got my stats, right? It's pity it's not Wednesday. I'd probably win the quiz. Kick defusals, right? Kick defusals. Now, I've been rabbiting on about this for years, right? And that we just do not diffuse kicks, ever, right? We're never in position. We never do clinically what you have to do to diffuse kicks. Our kick diffuser was at 59%, right? Now, we're struggling to start our sets. If we're not diffusing 40% of the kicks thrown at us, we're at a disadvantage to start our sets anyway. All right? And I just don't understand why these types of errors just keep recurring over and over and over again. That's been a chronic problem for us for so long, and it continues to be. Why?
They're an interesting club to follow and an interesting team to watch, because you could see, Steve, just to your point, that with a minute to go in the first half, you knew exactly what the Bulldogs were going to do. And we weren't prepped. We didn't have a strategy for how we were going to diffuse that. And it was only the effort of Justin Olam that ended up saving us in that moment. We are so different to so many other teams, and I don't mean that in a positive way. It's almost as if we are a rung lower on the ladder than probably the majority of the other teams that I watch. We seem to be a long way off when the other teams are firing a long way off the way they do everything, which is a real concern. It's almost like there's still a 16-team competition, and unfortunately we're the 17th. Like a relegation. We've been promoted up into the top league, but we're just not quite ready to play at that level yet. That's sort of what I felt in that second half.
I really believe it's culture and belief in the organisation. I look at the Melbourne Storm this year. Melbourne Storm could be 6 points lower on the ladder than they actually are. They've won 3 games just because of the winning culture within that club. The 3 games that they really had no right to come home and win. But they did. You just knew they were going to win those games because they're winners, right? And their club's all about winning. And they go out there and they win football games. We just don't have that. We started the season off, we had 2 good games against the Sharks and the Eels, and we just do not have the ability or the belief, I think, not ability, the belief to sustain that level of performance to win games. We've been in all those games. We should have beaten Canterbury after that first half. We should have gone on and won that game. But we didn't believe that I don't think we believe that we can win the game.
Yeah, I think the Storm will be really happy with Chris Butler at the moment after that strip decision on Joe, was it Fafita for the Titans? Because that was just an absolute terrible call. So yeah, I think the Storm are pretty lucky to get with the win they had last night. But still, everything Steve said is true though.
Eddie, a team can forget how to win, can't they? They can become... we spoke about this a couple of years ago. A team can become paralysed with the thought of winning or the thought of success or the pressure of winning, if that makes sense. It feels like we don't know how to win a game of football. We know how to compete, but we don't know how to just put a team away.
100%. I agree with that. It's like a batsman, Joel, that always gets out in the 90s. When you get to 90 next time, you're going to be even more nervous and you're going to do things, you're going to do crazy things, you're going to feel the pressure. And it definitely, you could tell it happens to us. Even as a fan, you're sitting there, most teams in the competition at 14-6 up would be thinking, how many are we going to win by? We're thinking, what's going to go wrong here? So it's natural that that's in the players' heads. But, I still think we got the worst roster in the competition. That's the bottom line. I mean, that sounds like an excuse, but I don't know. I look at these guys yesterday. We've completed at nearly 90%. We've had less ball. We've got absolutely murdered by the referee. I thought we played a pretty good game. And, yes, the NRL's about winning, and we're sitting at the bottom. Well, not right at the bottom, but we have been at the bottom for a number of years. And I think until you improve that roster, you're not going to improve that belief, because that's where it sort of comes from. There's no one who can pull the game out of the fire. Well, there's no one that that in the last 15 minutes you can trust to control a game. So I don't want to be too harsh on the playing group at the moment, because like you said, this last 5 weeks, I think there's been mass improvements defensively under John Morris this year. Like to only concede 3 tries yesterday, I thought that was an outstanding effort. But again, like the attack, and I think it's a personnel thing. I don't necessarily think it's a coaching thing, or it's a, 6 games out of 8 now, or 7 out of 9, we've scored 2 tries or less. You just can't win games like that. And it's like Groundhog Day at the moment, because I feel like we're improving, but we might not improve at all in terms of wins or ladder position.
Yeah, I agree with Eddie. I think it's just that the attack is putting too much pressure on the defence at the moment, because we never manage to score that 3rd or 4th try, do we? I think we can put 2 tries back to back and we look pretty good, but we just can't really find those 2 next tries just to put the game away. And then if you don't score more than 3 tries, then it's a very manageable score to run down for the opposition team. And if you look at attack brings teams confidence. If you look at the Titans last night, they were down by something like 4 tries, but they had the confidence and the self-belief to know that they were still in the game, because they could score 4 quick tries because they had the personnel. But with us, we just don't have that in our roster at the moment. And everything we do, it needs to be a team effort, because we don't really have that either X factor or execution. And I think you can see that on the team, that they're not confident. And when they do go behind, it's kind of like, well, I think we're going to struggle to keep up with the team here. But if we just had that kind of X factor, just someone who could change a game on the drop of a dime, then I think that would go a long way to kind of fixing the problems we have at the moment.
Yeah, it helps you get a little bit of momentum back. I mean, and the thing is, if you look at it clinically, as you say, if a team goes through a season, an NRL season, and they average 14 points a game, well, that's sort of their cap. The chances are they're going to win 4 games. The chances that you're going to keep the opposition to less than 14 is about 4 games out of your full season. So it's exactly right. That's exactly the West Tigers. Declan, I'm going to throw directly back to you, because you're the person that I normally go to for these sorts of questions. We're going for a macro rather than a micro, so a bigger picture here. Shane Richardson said, we've signed Taruva, we've signed Luai, we're not going to buy anybody else for 2025. He said, we're a development club, we've got to put faith in the youngsters. Now, that's all well and good, but that New South Wales Cup team is abysmal and is running last. How do we find some hope that there are some gems there that are going to be able to grab 5 or 6 or 4 or 5, maybe for a little more conservative, 4 or 5 spots in the top 15 or 18 of this club in 2025 and start getting us moving in that direction? Because at the moment, when you look at our contracts, Twal and Bud Sullivan and a few others, it's hard to find a lot of faith at the moment for 25.
It is. I think with development as well, it's a slow burn. Recruitment is obviously something that fans talk about, because it's the quick fix. We can get someone in next season, we can get Trevor in next season. But then, you have to spend premium money on them, and you can't do that for the entire 17-man team. So, yeah, I think that although Shane Richardson said that we're not going to sign any more players, I do think that might have been a bit of a poker face. I would be surprised if we didn't bring at least one more forward into the club, either with that 30th spot we have for this season or next season. I would be surprised if we didn't sign someone. But, the New South Wales Cup team is a problem, because if you look at teams like Penrith, they always had a dominant New South Wales Cup team, because those young players, they just managed to excel at that level before they excelled at the NRL, and it's just that gradual progression. But what we're doing at the moment is we're putting guys like Twal and Seyfarth and Kitla Lily, but they're just not thriving for whatever reason. It's probably because of the talent we're putting around them as well. And we have to remember these guys, they were playing SG ball this year as well, so they're still eligible for age group footy. So I think it's, I feel bad for them because it is a really tough task to go from age group footy to men. But at the same time, you're asking for hope. I mean, look at someone like Lachlan Galvin. I mean, no one was expecting him to have the impact he had. Like someone like Makasini, maybe he had a gun season for the Howard Mats this year. If he plays SG ball next season and then kicks on, he could be someone who towards the end of next year could be playing in that centre position. And then the same with, hopefully we have a few explosive forwards like we're trying to bring through at the moment. Jordan Miller's playing New South Wales Cup at the moment. He's that kind of big prop off the bench that we could maybe see towards the end of the season, hopefully, if he continues to play. But yeah, I don't know. It's just a tough one at the moment because development is a slow burn. It's not an easy fix, and it's something you have to continually commit to. Otherwise, it's not going to bear fruit.
Can I mention the other side of it? Like we talk about recruitment, I want to go back to the other side of that, and that's retention, and go back to Eddie's comment about this being one of the worst rosters, and just look at our forward pack. We've got Stefano, who's supposedly an up-and-coming State of Origin player, which he shows from time to time. We've got Clemmer, who's been a State of Origin. We've got Papali's international. Bateman's an international. We had Bula and Offarangawi. Bula's killing it at the Storm. Now, I don't understand the trading practices and how it all works and whether we had to get rid of Bula to get Olam and that was considered greater in our favour. I don't know how all that works. But all I know is at the beginning of last year, our forward pack was dominating. And we have this year, Pole's come out of his shell. We've got Fainu, Samuel Fainu, who looks the goods. Better than that, he looks like he's going to be a great footballer. You look at that pack, and if you add Bula and Offarangawi into that rotation and take out Twal and Seyfarth, for example, that's a pretty dynamic forward pack. And you remember we've said this before that we can't just keep going around in circles and replacing players. Like we get someone in, but someone drops out. We've got to build the roster, right? So we've got to retain as well as recruit, And I know we've done this to ad nauseum, but I just think losing Bula and Offa will just be huge losses for us. If you look at the way our forward pack is operating now.
Well, and if you look at whoever made those decisions, and I'm not, I guess the decisions were made for whatever reason, but the people who justified those decisions felt that it was guys like Fayagatu and Leilili and these others that were going to come through and fill those spots, and they just haven't. Now, that's my concern, and my question for you, Eddie, is if these guys that we're banking on are still a couple of years away, how does the club survive? Potentially, I think pretty much we all agree we're more likely than not to finish in the bottom three this year, potentially another spoon. Can the club absorb another year like this next year as we wait for these players to come through?
It's difficult. Yeah, I agree with Steve, especially Sean Bula, just a player with that sort of power and body. I know we got Olam, and Olam's been serviceable, but it's not like we've been smashed by injuries. That's a concern, Joel. Is like we've had a fairly stable squad for the first 9 or 10 weeks. If we get smashed by injuries at any point, there's just nothing there. We're just going to lose games every week. So I think I think it's probably Richardson just keeping his cards close to his chest. I'm sure they are looking at all sort of possible trades or angles in recruitment, even if it's a diamond in the rough. I know Declan mentioned a guy like Dave Fafito earlier, potentially talking to Sydney clubs. He's the sort of guy that can add points to you. I'm not saying he's perfect the way he plays. I'm not probably 100 to 1 that we'll get him, but certainly at the moment we've spoke about it ad nauseum. Is there just seems to be, even in that top 17, there's guys there on your bench who are probably in your 21st player, and they're having to play. So it's a concern.
Yeah, I think it's just tough because if you do recruit too much externally and you bring guys from inside, then you're going to lose juniors. And that, like, if that's justifiable because the juniors aren't good enough to play first grade, then that's fine. But I think if a club is being serious about, being a club that develops their players, then they have to give these guys a chance. And like Richardson, I know, like all of us guys, we're years and years and years of not playing finals. But does Richardson see it that way? Because this is his first year of the rebuild, so he's probably thinking of it like, well, this is the first year. This squad, it needs to go through a little bit of evolution, and we're going to be patient. So I'm just not sure that, like, I would be surprised if he was aggressively looking to sign guys from outside the club on big coin, especially now that we've signed Bula on like $1 million+.
Yeah, we've just got to find a way to get more out of, probably 15 guys that are in our top 29 that just aren't contributing to the first grade team at all. A couple of them injured, of course, and you're right about the injuries. We're starting to lose a few players here and there. Caesar now is going to be out for, you would think, at least 4 weeks for that tackle, which I think is a little bit over the top. But anyway, be that as it may, are we talking about Jaden Sullivan, do we think, or do we put Latu Fainu, who also seems to still be injured, into that number 7 or number 6 spot to partner Galvin? Declan?
Well, I think that if he's fit, you've got to give Latu Fainu a chance. I know me and Eddie and Gary were talking last week about how, like, we still keep Caesar there because he's the consistent, experienced first grader. But we've kind of seen what Jaden Sullivan can do in first grade. Like, I would like to see Latu Fainu.
Sorry, I was just saying he can do nothing. You asking what Jaden Sullivan can do in first grade? Nothing good.
Like we've seen it, and I think, like, obviously if Latu Fainu is injured, then that kind of throws a little bit of a spanner in the works. But like, if he's fit enough to take the field, I would like to see what Fainu can do at 7.
Yeah. Well, I guess that'll be something for the midweek pod. I see it as an opportunity, and I don't mean to be, a bit facetious about Caesar. And I like aspects of Caesar's game. Like, that was a great kick he kicked from the sideline. Defensively, he's been really good for us at different times, but he's just not setting our attack on fire. And we're struggling to score points. And I'm not saying that just any change is good change, but what have we got to lose? I mean, we've got 4 weeks now. You may also put, as Declan said, if Fainu is fit, put him in there, let him have a go. He plays on the left, put Galvin over on the right, and see how they go. The season is all but gone anyway, so I don't know why play conservative at this point. So we will see what the team is that Benji picks on Tuesday, Eddie.
One thing I'm confused, I'm interested if the boys got any thoughts on this on Caesar, is like, how many times this year has he kicked the ball under insufferable pressure? Like, is he just putting himself in the wrong position? Is he not getting deep enough, or is it just the fact we're not getting forward enough? But like 6 or 7 times yesterday, he was just like under so much duress when he was kicking the ball, and you don't usually see that on the last tackle.
I just think that when he gets the ball on the wrong side and his less dominant like kicking leg, it just takes a second just to transfer it to the right position so he can kick it from his left leg, and I think that split second just gives the defence just that little bit more of an opportunity to get at him. So it just looks awkward a lot of the time, doesn't it? And he doesn't really get much distance on his kicks either when he's under pressure, which is really annoying.
Yeah, I also think it's our, dare I say it, it's our lack of attention to detail with our training methods, right? We just don't have the players in the position to protect him. You look at Penrith, right? The minute there was that rule change with blocking runners through, like protecting your kicker, they got around it, right? And they had the dummy half running across and protecting the kicker. The minute there was a rule change, they were on top of it. I haven't seen us do anything different. We don't protect our 6 and 7 when they're kicking the ball.
Another thing just with that game, just thinking about that in terms of strategy, something that you noticed that the Bulldogs did a lot was they wrestled a lot in attack. When they're getting up to get the ball, they made sure that they had a West Tigers player, looped around them somehow, or to try and milk the penalty. Like that physicality that they managed to have changed the way that they play the ball and their ability to keep that momentum going, if that makes sense, because we were always on that back foot. I think the thing with Caesar is it's a little bit like Bateman. I think once you've lost that half pace, that little bit of pace, it shows in this grade of football. I think he's really slow. We said that about Wakeham a lot last year. That most of us could beat Wakeham in a 50-metre dash. I think Caesar has lost that little bit of pace, and I think that's got to be a factor in it as well, which is sort of sad. I wanted to just do a little shout out to Frullins. Frullins has had a few. Most of our listeners would know the name Frullins from the West Tigers podcast forum. He's been on an episode with Gary talking about how he came to be a West Tigers fan. A good guy, Frullins. He's had a few little health issues, so we wish Frullins all the best. And Steve, we have an ambush event coming up this week. It is, correct me if I'm wrong, I haven't really been in West Tigers space too much today, but I think we play the Knights, I think, from memory.
We do play the Knights at Tamworth, so our ambush event is on at West Ashfield this Saturday afternoon. It's 1:30 start, so we'll get together for an hour or so and then watch the game, which kicks off at 3 o'clock, I think, on the big screen at West Ashfield. Kelly has abandoned us. She's eating sushi and all sorts of stuff in Japan, so she won't be around, but it's been left to Gary and I, and you couldn't have a more capable duo. So it'll be a wonderful ambush event. I will just give a bit of an update, if I can, Joel, on the ambush. We met with Kelly, Gary and I met with the club last week and received very positive feedback from them. They're really behind us. They want to support us and want to do everything they can to grow the ambush and make it a huge success. So that was really, really positive. It's taken a while to talk to them with all the change at the club. We are hoping that we will have a guest of some description on Saturday, but we haven't confirmed that yet. But the minute we'll let everyone know. So hopefully we're going to have a big turnout, 1:30 p.m, West Ashfield this coming Saturday.
And that's all very positive news. That's good to hear, Steve. And also, it's our final game in Tamworth. So a little bit of West Tigers history to come to a bit of a close. Is anybody going to miss the Tamworth game? No, Declan's shaking his head.
Shane Richardson, he's not going to miss it, Joel. I think he said, there'll be no playing in the bush. But, good for those guys in Tamworth. I mean, I think we've had a win, or was it maybe a last-minute loss over the Knights in Tamworth? I remember Sean Kenny Dow, I think, scoring a try. But I just wanted to we didn't mention it during the wrap of the game. I want to give a shout-out to Jake Simpkin. I thought he played really well yesterday for a guy who has hardly had any opportunity this year and is known as a bit of a run-of-the-mill dummy half. I just thought he played 65 minutes, played really hard, and got the ball to his halves early. So I thought, well done to Jake.
Yep.
I'll just throw a curveball out there, guys. Jake Simpson picked at 9, Appy at 7, Galvin at 6, Fain at 14.
Is this Tim Sheens just joined the call now?
I'm just saying.
Who's Jake Simpson? I don't know that.
Jake Simpson.
Homer Simpson's brother.
Bart's brother.
Oh, dear. Alrighty. It's not like us to mix up any names, Eddie.
I was just going to ask, was Gary in Newcastle today, John?
I don't know.
You just sent something around before where there was someone running on the field and fell over. It looked a bit like just wasn't sure why it wasn't on.
Ronald McDonald.
I don't know.
No. It wasn't Gary. It was a completely different clown. Yeah. All right. Thank you, guys.
See ya. Bye.
Thank you.